Are there winners at the Combine? We're not really sure, but Washington looks like they came away as the big winners this weekend.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Rome Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He writes for Inside the Huskies of Fan Nation Sports Illustrated. I'm the site editor over with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen today. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. So, Lars, I've had a terrible weekend after my upstairs neighbors flooded my apartment. I've been sleeping on the couch all weekend, but the Washington Huskies, they did not have a terrible weekend in Indianapolis. And it looks like a lot of Huskies came away as big winners from this event in terms of their individual draft stock. So I feel like it's safe to say that the Huskies came away as the biggest winners from the NFL Combine this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, this is a off-season daddy 12 months in the making, right? Because for Washington, the story was last year, nobody at the Combine, nobody gets drafted. This is the first time the Huskies haven't had a player drafted in years, right? You usually have at least one or two, right? So it's like, well, wait, why is Washington not represented at all? Because everyone and their mother came back this past season. So now all those guys that would have mostly gone last year are now getting a chance to show what they would do this year. And as we expected, Rome ran as well as fast as he did. Penix impressed as well as he did. Troy and Roger impressed as well as they did. I mean, most of these guys are meeting with them 3/4, if not every single NFL team. I believe I saw a tweet where Roger met with 28 out of 32. Troy probably met with 31 and 32. It's like, okay, if there's certain teams you're trying to find teams that aren't meeting with them. So who's not meeting with these guys? I would imagine Jalen Polk and McMillan probably met with half the league as well. So you just start going down the list. And then you look at Westover. He didn't test, but he's got to have meetings. And he's been kind of a quiet name that obviously we mentioned on the show, but that probably will be rising. And then when you come to the pro day on March 29th at Washington, then these guys get one last chance to impress. And I think that's kind of the other thing to remember is now these guys have put their name up there. Kind of all their names are in the hat. Their names have been vaulted up a little bit more. And then you still got the pro day about 4 weeks before the draft at Washington to impress one more time. So maybe Penix does some more drills there. But again, some of these guys, and we'll talk about this, some of these guys truly didn't have to test. I'm sure, we're going to talk about Penix in the second segment as for the YouTube show, for the people that see on YouTube, but for our audio only listeners. But that's the thing is like all these guys that whatever they didn't do, they didn't have to do. Like we're not coming out of this. Here's my main takeaway about this. We're not coming out of this and saying, ooh, Penix is medical. See, there was some red flags there. Right. No mention of that. And that's the thing. Go honestly, we were saying that going into it, where it's like, hey, just let Michael get to Indy and prove that health is not a problem. You just got to get to Indy. That's all you got to do.
So to what you were saying there, Michael and Rome both deserve their own segment. So we'll get to them a little bit later on in the show. So let's start with for me, the biggest takeaway personally was Troy Fautanu, where Devin Culp ran really well. Roger Rosengarten ran really well. But Troy Fautanu was somebody who, you and I expected him to be a first-round pick, but he was kind of on the fringe there with a lot of people saying he was going to play guard. I know we were included in that discussion that, it sounded like he was going to play guard. Comes in, measures really, really well, and then he just tests off the charts. And you look at social media as we record this today on Sunday afternoon, and social media is just blowing up, just saying, wow, look at Troy Fautanu. Look at how fluid he is. Look at how great of a mover he is. Obviously, these are things that, all Husky fans know really well, and as both of us do as well from watching him play all season. But it's really nice to see just that he's kind of moved himself into the tackle discussion as well, where, if he's going to play guard, he's going to be an all-pro guard at the next level. But now you can look at him as a tackle and just say, yeah, this dude has a really high floor at that position as well. So, you can look at him and just say, okay, this dude, I don't know if he's going to end up going top 20 just with some of the way that, Amarius Mims looks. JC Latham measured in really well, tested really well. And then of course there's Talisi Fuaga, Joe Alt and Ulofoshio as well. So this is just a really, really good tackle class in general. And now that Troy Fautanu, might have a little bit more of that versatility look, maybe he moves into the top 20. Who knows? Maybe the Seahawks take him at 16. We know they need some help there. So that would be just a really interesting one to look at. But his draft stock overall is definitely on the rise after Sunday.
Yeah, I firmly agree. I think, to your point, his versatility, his ability to play tackle or guard has locked him in the top 20. He's going to go in the top 20.
Okay.
I will plant that flag right now. Troy Fautanu goes top 20. It's not really a bold prediction because it's real. Like, bold would be saying top 10, but I can say, it's like the locked on lock of the draft is Troy Fautanu going future segment.
I like that.
But going in the top 20. But to your point, one name that you mentioned that I do, again, he's not going to go day 1, day 2. Maybe he goes back in day 2 at the highest, but I think, again, probably early day 3 is Devin Culp. One of the fastest, I think, had one of, if not the fastest tight end 40s, right?
He had the fastest combine time for tight ends, and it was the 4th fastest at the position since 2003. Yeah.
That's what it was. I was like, I knew he had both tops, but it wasn't like exactly. Right. But again, that's something where Devin, again, that's one thing I've been beating the drum with Devin the entire time. Where, again, I've said this multiple times in the show, came out of Gonzaga Prep in Spokane as an athlete, running back, wide receiver, no clue how to play tight end. And then got coached up by Jordan Pow initially. Then you throw in 2 or 3 other tight end coaches since, because he's been here forever. And then you go now can you put it all together? Because that's been the thing with Devin. You have your free athletic, you're smart, great. You check literally every box we could want, or almost every box we could want. Maybe a little bit bigger, a little better blocker. But now we're nitpicking, right? But then what is the one thing he has to be able to do? Be an athlete. Run the fastest, look the best, because that's when you're playing on special teams as a rookie. You're trying to just get snaps as a rookie. You have to be able to impress in multiple ways. And so I think that's something for Devin to where, again, I think both Washington tight ends have a chance to get drafted on day 3. Like, I think
they both will.
And so, again, now where to be determined, right? But I think they're too good at this point, and they've proven and won Sweat Starter tests and things like that at the pro day. Devin's hands has saved his career. Let's be real here. Devin's hands over the last 2 years have saved his career.
Right. He's done a really good job at progressing and eliminating drops and finding ways to come up clutch with some nice grabs. So that is a good point. And before I want to make sure that we touch on Ulofoshio and Roger Rosengarten as well for a couple seconds. But the last thing with Devin is Evan Ingram's 40-yard dash time a bunch of years ago pushed him all the way into the first round. And he can't block to save his life. I love Evan Ingram, but he can't block to save his life. So Devin who's really improved as a blocker over his time at Washington, definitely still has ways to go, but has done a really good job at improving in that aspect of it. Does it push him into the back end of day 2? Probably not. But see, maybe a 4th, 5th round pick now where teams are going to look at that athletic profile and just say, yeah, that's somebody we can work with. You could say the same thing about both Edefuan Ulofoshio and Roger Rosengarten. Roger had the fastest 40 time of any offensive tackle on the day, which is really cool to see. And then Eddie just did a really good job of testing just all around, showed that he's really explosive. And then what is really considered to be a weak linebacker class, where you look around some of these other guys where like Michigan's Junior Colson's probably a top player right now. And he's good. I really like how his athleticism, you look at like Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Peyton Wilson, there are a couple other guys where you can say, okay, yeah, these are some solid linebackers, but I don't know if Eddie's going to move into the day 2 discussion with some of his medicals that might pop up, or we haven't heard much about that at this time, but he's something where you look at that right now and you just say, yeah, both of these dudes made themselves a lot of money this weekend.
Oh, no doubt. I think that was I think Eddie's kind of, when you just look at Eddie, like barring medical, there's no reason that guy shouldn't have a 5 to 10 year career in the NFL. He just looks like an NFL linebacker, a true captain, put everything into Washington. And then you look at Roger, same sort of thing where it's, okay, what was the knock? Should he come back and play left tackle? No, doesn't have to. Why? He's athletic as heck. Like, why come back and risk another 12, 13 games of injury when you can go get paid in the NFL and know that, okay, you don't have any true left tackle tape in college, but you don't need that. I think at this point in his career, like, there's no way Roger would need that to get vaulted into a day 2 pick or even a potentially late day 1 pick. Or late first round pick, early day 2 pick. Sorry, not saying Roger's day 2 pick. Not saying that.
With that being said, let's move on to some Michael Penix talk. right after a message from our friends over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wondered what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a line of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. The classic exclusive Google built-in is your always updating system to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and the Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Armada, which will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. And you can do that at shopnissanusa.com. So, Lars, Michael Penix. Drake May didn't throw. Caleb Williams didn't throw. Jaden Daniels didn't throw. And from everything we're seeing on social media, all the way the draft experts are talking on television, sounds like Michael Penix is another guy who made himself a lot of money this weekend, where you start with the medicals. Seeing that was really great. Interviews really well in front of teams and in front of the media, but teams were raving about him. Maybe we'll touch on the Broncos, who just put up a whole bunch of his bad plays. And he said, yeah, that's fine. That is what it is. But then he gets on the field, doesn't test, but just throws really, really well. And I can't remember where I saw this, but there was a really nice quote. Right? I saw that like Luke McCown has given him a lot of love. You look at everyone from Dane Brugler, Matt Miller, they're just draft analysts left and right just saying, yeah, Michael Penix was fantastic. He was the best thrower this weekend. It almost feels like there's a certain, where being a lefty is probably part of it, but until you actually watch him throw in person, you don't necessarily understand how good of a thrower of the football he is sometimes.
Right, and again, it's kind of, we're biased and we've seen him throw every single day almost for the last 2 years. So again, we're the ones be like, hey, like this is why, like how is Michael Penix not being talked about more? Well, again, when you see him every day, you're a little more slanted in that regard. But I think that's kind of the thing with Penix, where it's almost exactly what we thought, right? Where from a personality perspective, like once you meet him, you just instantly connect with the guy. Like it's hard to hate on the kid, right? It's actually impossible to hate on the kid, right? Like you look at Caleb Williams, okay, a lot of persona going around on there, right? Whether it's his fault or not, there's a different narrative being spoken there. Drake May is kind of the enigma. Like, okay, nobody's really talking about Drake May, but we kind of know he's probably going to go top 3 anyways. Jaden Daniels probably feels like he's cemented himself in that top 3 going to New England. But with that being said,
that's a different discussion for another day.
I just want to get that. I just want to get that on the record. But with that being said, Penix is. I mean, again, it's one of those where you can understand. Teams might still be. There's always going to be the medical question, right? No matter what, right? Even if he goes healthy for 5 years, like, well, he does have an injury history. So when are we going to catch up to him? It's like, okay, well, what if it never does? And then the other side of that is you started to hear some things where it's like, okay, Penix can't throw unless he doesn't have a good pocket. I'm like, okay, well, clearly you didn't see what he did in Indiana, because the guy can still throw in Indiana. He just never had a second to throw. So, and Washington's offensive line was good, right? Especially this past season.
It's very good.
But even at times, Penix still had to roll out, still had to make plays. So again, there's always the draft experts which are not Dane and Matt and the guys that actually do phenomenal work. But some of the other ones, I mean, I listen to on radio, and it's like, okay, Penix, he always has a clean pocket. It's like, I haven't seen Penix stare down a defender coming in his face and make a 50-yard dime against Michigan State. So I'm going to have to disagree on that one.
On that point, he had one of the lowest sack avoidance rates in the country of any quarterback. The only person who had a lower sack avoidance rate was Bo Nix. And so it's nice to see him mention where it's something around like 2% of just like sacks that looked like they were going to. It's an interesting stat, but seeing it be that low is something where, you say, oh yeah, well, clean pocket. It's a good counter to that argument, where another thing that he was asked about was his ability to run and why he doesn't do it very often, even though, he tested really well in terms of GPS tracking some of the advanced stats down at the Senior Bowl. He just said it's not something that I need to be part of my game all too often. And you and I know from listening to Ryan Grubb talk a lot that it's not something that he was coached to do either, where it's, hey, we need you to stay healthy. We don't want you to take a whole lot of hits. Where in the NFL, obviously it's the same thing, where he doesn't want to take a lot of hits, wants to stay healthy as much as he possibly can. But sometimes that's just going to be what he's asked to do a little bit more of, where, on 2nd and 8, sometimes instead of bringing up 3rd and 8, he might want to, run for 4 or 5 yards if he can and slide down. So it's something that we know was coached a little bit, but it's nice to see that he acknowledged that and knows that it's something that when he needs to do, he can do it. Because another thing that we've seen him do as well over the past couple of years is run when need be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one underrated quote or the one underrated trait about Mike that you probably can't really ascribe to many people is he's probably one of the more self-aware guys you're going to meet, both
Absolutely.
on and off the field. Like, in terms of he knows, like, go back to 22, where he has the UCLA game where he throws 2 picks, right? Self-aware, right? Never, I don't believe he had another game. Maybe he might have had one more in his career, but I don't think he had that many more where he threw multiple picks in a game at Washington.
Right.
I off the top of my head, I can't think of one. I could be wrong. Somebody could fact check me on that. But the point being,
well, did he throw multiple against Michigan?
But that's the other game, right? That's the only other game that
I think Arizona State too, but
was that it's Arizona in 22 or 21? Because actually, no, 22 actually both, wasn't it? Wasn't it? It was actually. Yes. But again, yes. Schools in the desert don't count. And then but
your point is valid. Yeah.
Yeah. That Mike is somebody where he knows what he needs to do. I mean, I think actually to your point, it was either against Texas or Michigan in one of those bowl games where he took he kept it and actually took a decent hit. Like, and so but he knew how to take the hit. So it's a matter of positioning yourself. He's not going to be the Superman that tries to, endanger his health, Lamar Jackson, just Superman, and get wiped out, or, Cam Newton or something like that. But he does just enough to be like, no, I'm not Peyton Manning. I'm not like awkward running or anything like that. But I would rather use my left arm than my leg. Again, the comps are going to be there to Tua, right? But I think he has more deep ball velocity than Tua. And I think probably as a decision maker, he's probably better than Tua. Now, again, what happens when you have Mike McDaniel as your coach in the NFL? You look pretty dang good. Not that Tua doesn't look good, but if Mike can find that kind of, if he can go to Denver, that is the perfect fit for him. Give me Sean Payton and Michael Penix in the same offense. Like, talent with Happy. Not a great talent set there, but
I don't even think that's my favorite fit for him in terms of coaches. Where I look at somebody like I know people on Vikings Twitter don't seem to believe that Michael Penix might be the best fit for Kevin O'Connell's system. I think that would be a really interesting one. And another fit that I actually really like for Michael Penix is the Los Angeles Rams, where we'll see what's going on with Matthew Stafford. He's starting to get up there in age. I know he's got a bit of an injury history. He's missed a lot of time over the last couple of seasons. And I'm a huge Matthew Stafford fan. And I think that Michael Penix, same number, that'd be kind of fun, but he would work really well in that Sean McVay offense where he's got the arm strength to push it downfield and do a lot of the same things that Stafford does. And then at the same point, he's going to have some nice receivers to throw to, and Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. So that'd be really fun as well. And with Sean McVay scheming up that offense, that would be really fun to watch. A couple other ones that, I think might be really fun as we kind of look at this where, I don't know if he's going to go this high in the draft because, we're talking about the Broncos at 12, the Vikings at 11. We'll see what that looks like. But because the Rams are a little bit later in the first round, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where they're down there a little further, where that would be a really interesting fit where he gets to go home. I know Mike Evans wants to go back there. We'll see what they do with Baker Mayfield. Mike's not the kind of guy where, you necessarily want him to sit for a year or two with his age and experience at the college level, where he'd definitely be able to start right away if X team chooses him. I don't know, just say the Falcons decide to pick him. He can step right in and start there if need be. But if the Bucs decide to bring back Baker Mayfield on a short-term deal, it'd be fun to see him work with guys like Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. He gets to play close to home. That would be really fun. And then the last one, we have to mention the Seattle Seahawks, where just as we kind of look at just what Mike has done over the course of the weekend, he's probably pushed himself into the first round conversation. There's still a long way to go before the draft. It's misinformation season. It's always super fun. So we'll see what that looks like. And when some of these top 30 visits start to get scheduled, where he might end up taking a few more visits. But Ryan Grubb, actually, interestingly enough, Michael Penix said that was not one of the teams that he talked to during his time at the combine. So that'd be really interesting. But of course, maybe you think about, oh, hey, Ryan Grubb knows me really well. I don't know if he necessarily needs to have any more time with me. And, you can spend some of that time elsewhere, which, that makes sense. But you look at that and you just look at that core of receivers as well. And you look at what they're building along the offensive line, where they've got some nice pieces of tackle. I know they suffered some injuries, and, one more guy might work really well, especially along the interior there, but that would be a really interesting prospect for him as well. And, as we talk about some team fits, I think it's time that we talk about Rome Odunze, because, he might be wide receiver 1 after this weekend. Right after a message from our friends over at FanDuel, because you can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of the NBA, and as we record this, I have to give a shout out to the Celtics, man. In the third quarter, they're up 102-50 on the Golden State Warriors. And it's just beautiful for the official team of the Locked On Huskies podcast, because, if you're on FanDuel and they're looking for, an NBA Finals futures bet, just bet on the Celtics. Just do it now. All right, Lars. Rome Odunze. Some people have had him in the wide receiver 1 conversation for a while. Shout out Daniel Jeremiah, who said he's his favorite player in the draft. Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors opt out of all testing. There's some, I still think Marvin Harrison is going to be the first receiver taken, but everything that we're seeing around Rome Odunze is really fun. And I was listening to the Ringer NFL draft show the other day. They do fantastic work over there. And one thing that they were talking about was how much fun it was to talk to and listen to Rome Odunze interview. And then, of course, everything comes out with him staying after to try to hit his 3-cone shuttle time too, where seeing all of that and just knowing that this is the guy we've watched over the past 2-3 years just mature and just always know that he was this kind of person. It's really cool to see everybody else kind of come around on him in that same light. And of course, there were a lot of people who were already there, but he's cemented himself as what feels like a top 8 pick with the Bears as well, a top 9 pick at the very worst at this point in the draft cycle.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is because we know what Rome, the only thing Rome doesn't have is the last name, right? And that's no disrespect to the family of Odunze.
Hey, but people love his last name. People are saying, look at Rome Odunze. That's a superstar name right there.
No, and that's the thing, is it's okay, he doesn't have the NFL superstar last name with Harrison, but he basically has the superstar name that everyone's going to know. He has the name that I think in 10 years we'll say, you know what? Everybody thought Marvin Harrison Jr. was the best coming out. Rome was the best one in that class. I think that's going to be the conversation, where you're going to have probably 3 great receivers come from this class in the first round, but Rome is going to be the ones wow, you know what? He was actually just a little bit head and shoulders better than everybody else. He never got the accolades for it. He never got the Biletnikoff that he should have got. He never got the Heisman consideration that he probably should have got in any other year.
Sure.
But Rome's he doesn't care about that stuff. He truly does. Most guys it would have been nice if I would have won the Heisman. It's yeah, I don't care. It's Rome, again, that's one of the things about this team, that all these guys are so self-aware. I love Rome's comment when someone said, "Can you fly a plane?" He's like, "No,
that was the best part.
We are going down. We are no survivors either." Well, it wasn't even hey, I can try and do it Sully style. He's like, no, we're turning in. We're going down. We are. Yeah,
it's over.
Yeah. But it's also it's kind of because that's what kind of teams are looking for. How can we judge your personality? What are you going to be like? When media in the NFL asks you some random out of pocket question at the Super Bowl media day, where anybody and their mother can show up. So it's okay, which guys are not going to get us in trouble? Which guys are going to make us actually maybe even potentially more valuable by being interesting or funny? It's exactly what Rome is, and so I think, for all those reasons and everything on the field. One comp that I saw, I remember on the show, I comped him to Anquan Bolden about a month or so ago. You remember that roughly?
I do.
Well, I saw a comp now because somebody else comped him to Larry Fitzgerald. Now he's about 15 pounds lighter than Larry Fitzgerald. I'm but again, it's kind of in that similar mode where it's okay, he's going to go guaranteed top 12, probably top 10. Yeah, it's just a matter of, okay, what teams want, what do teams need, who moves up, just kind of the draft Olympics, if you will. But Rome, without question, to your point, is a top 9, top 8 pick at this point, in terms of talent, for sure.
I will say, and I saw another really fun comp. Shout out to Brett Coleman, who does fantastic film work. He comped him to DeAndre Hopkins, where he's definitely a little faster than DeAndre Hopkins is. And while Rome didn't run into the 4.3s like he did last summer, 4.45 is a fantastic time for a dude that's 6'3", 215 pounds. And you look at some of his other athletic testing numbers, he was just, his RAS scores off the chart. He did everything he needed to do. And then on top of that, it's like you said, where it's not just the good pub and the interesting aspect of it, because that's just who he is as a person. And like we were just saying, that's something that you and I have known from talking to him over the last couple of years. I remember we were chatting with him, I think it was in the spring of 2022, about his time where he wanted to go study abroad in Rome over the summer. And, you know, it just, we had a fantastic conversation about that. And there's just so many times where you just can tell that that's where, you know, there are people who are definitely coached to say certain things and how to interact with the media. That's something that he'll never need. Where Rome is just a really nice, really humble, really genuine person. And you can't say enough good things about him. And yeah, this is Locked On Huskies. It might sound like we're like talking this kid up to be more than he is, but that's not what it is. This is just every time you interact with him, you just come away feeling like, yeah, he's a really genuine kid. He listens really well. He would make sure that he listened and talked to everybody at the Combine Media Day and make sure he answered every single question, where that's just the kind of person he is. And then you look at him on the field and you see the production, you see everything else that he is. And this is exactly what you're looking for in a top 10 pick. And to go back to that Larry Fitzgerald comp, because that's who Larry Fitzgerald was off the field too. And yeah, that's a really high bar to live up to. But when you look at everything that Rome Odunze has done throughout his career at Washington, throughout this whole draft process, that's the kind of person he is too.
Exactly. I think that's the thing, because it's not a kid where it's like, hey, he's a nice kid because he's kind of, you know, maybe a late first rounder. Like, he's a great person. You really got to talk him up.
Sure.
It's probably fair to say, which means, again, this conversation comes down to Marvin or Rome, but who's the more safer pick in the draft? There's only one of those two guys. It's like the safest pick. Again, there's no true safe pick in the draft, but it's like, again, you know, Rome doesn't have any injury history, doesn't have any reason to say this kid's not going to be a 10, 12-year, 15-year vet, right? There's no indication of that, right? So, but again, it's one you don't want to say, right? Because that's, again, when you say, hey, it's the safest. Aaron Curry was the safest pick back out of Wake Forest, and look how that turned out. So, you know, it's always kind of subjective to a degree. But yeah, there's no reason why, to me, it's again more of the fit. But again, no matter where Rome goes, gonna play on his rookie contract and probably either get a long big extension like Buddha did with the Cardinals, or he'll get traded and become one of the top 5 receivers paid in the NFL. Like, I think it's just he's just on a natural trajectory. And I remember like covering his 21 season in Washington. I'm like, this kid is so underutilized. This kid is so criminally good that he's not getting. And then Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer show up, like, and we're cooking now. So it's like, if Rome Odunze had 21 with Kalen and Grubb, he's wide receiver 1. This isn't the discussion, and history is a lot different.
Right. And, you know, you can talk about the shoulder injury he suffered that year that caused him to miss a couple of weeks too, where that definitely would have helped his trajectory even more, you know, but maybe he plays in that game against Michigan. That doesn't change that outcome. But, you know, it's something where, oh, hey, look at this kid who's really impressive, makes that one-handed catch against Washington State in the Apple Cup at the end of that season too.
Rome wouldn't have lost to Montana though, so there's something.
Oh, we keep saying we're done with this, and then we keep coming back to it in some way, shape, or form. But I want to take a minute here to just kind of review this draft, because this draft is truly unbelievable from so many standpoints, especially when we look at some of the positions that we've talked about today. Quarterback, there's Caleb Williams, who's just been billed as this generational talent for so long. Drake May has come along and put himself in that discussion. Jaden Daniels was so insanely productive this year. You look at the tackles, or there are 3 tackles slated to go in the top 10 right now. And then wide receivers, there's Marvin Harrison Jr., who has been billed as, you know, just this fantastic prospect, is because that's exactly what he is. Malik Neighbors has burst onto the scene this year. We saw Brian Thomas, Adonai Mitchell have fantastic days at the Combine too, where they were already probably going to be first-round picks anyways. And then we saw them boost their stock even more. We saw Xavier Worthy beat John Ross in the 40-yard dash, which is something that definitely needs to be mentioned on Locked On Huskies. But looking at Rome, looking at Jalen McMillan, looking at Jalen Polk, looking at Troy Fautanu and Roger Rosengarten, Michael Penix, and just really goes beyond there with everybody at every position. It's really cool to see how this is all stacked up, for Washington. It's really cool to see how, this is a really talented draft class in so many ways at every single position, and at every single position outside of cornerback. It seems like there's a Husky that's right there just saying, hey, don't forget about this guy. Don't forget about this guy, where corner is the one position where Washington just doesn't have anybody in the draft. And at every other position, it's, hey, check out Dylan Johnson at running back. Yeah, he didn't have the best 40 time, but he's still a super productive guy with a whole lot of good film under his belt. We talked about the linebackers. The only guy we haven't mentioned on the show that definitely needs to mention, because, Zion Tupuola-Fatui, we haven't heard much, and that all just kind of comes back to the injury that he suffered, was Dominique Hampton. And Dominique Hampton also tested really well. So it's really cool where, it's headlined by Rome Odunze and Michael Penix, the guys we spent the most time on over the course of the show. But that's why Washington won the combine, is because all of these guys performed really well and impressed in one way or another, which is really, really cool to see, just from the standpoint of what this season was for so many reasons, where it's the run to the national championship. It's, why did they win so many one possession games? It's because they had so many guys like this for one reason or another. And the coaching staff helped as well, but because of the mentality of all these guys that now they get to put on display at a national level, it's just really, really cool. And Lars, I feel like that's a great place for us to wrap this one up. As always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the everydayers for tuning in. We really do appreciate your support. Stay tuned, because we got a lot of fun stuff coming for you over the next couple of weeks and months. So make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating the channel with new content every single day. So please make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe, hit that little bell notification so you never miss when we drop a new video. And again, like the video, leave us a comment down below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and leave us an audio review of 5 stars if you're an audio-only listener, as it all really does help the show out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Tuesday.